All right, so back for week 2, The Artist's Way. This chapter this week was recovering a sense of identity. If you weren't here for week 1, it was recovering a sense of safety. To recap, Artist's Way, a spiritual path to higher creativity. Basically, a workbook to rediscover your own creative energy, I guess, or kind of calibrate it for others. But yeah, so as far as week 2 goes, let's look back here. How many days did I do my morning pages, which, if you aren't familiar, it's basically like a journaling exercise you got to do every day for 3 pages of just whatever comes to mind. And let's see how we did. What would be the week for this week's? Today's Sunday the 9th, so it would have been like Monday the 3rd to the 8th. So let's look at my book here. Take note, baby. Looks like I really didn't do Monday the 3rd, but I did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and there's some activities at the end of this second chapter that I did yesterday, but honestly I didn't do my morning pages yesterday. So what, I did 5 out of 7 or something? Someone can correct me on that math. Did my pages this morning. But yeah, I feel like the focus of week 2 is trying to figure out what you like to do outside of whatever your creative pursuit is, and even a lot of things that maybe you used to like to do that you didn't do for years, and figuring out what those are, and you know, kind of being more well-rounded, I guess, because I definitely fall into the trap of everything being about the art, and then you kind of run out of things to sing about, and you run out of inspiration and excitement in your life, really. Like, I skateboarded for first time in a long time for like maybe 30 minutes earlier this week, and it felt good to kind of connect with the younger version of myself. Skateboarding was the coolest thing to me for a long time, and it still is. So it was good to feel like that version of myself again. Some things that came up in chapter 2, which I found interesting, that I had starred here. First would have been this quote she said: "Do not let your self-doubt turn into self-sabotage," which I think is something she keeps reiterating about, as you do these affirmations and you do the journaling, and you're going to have a lot of skepticism that any of this is working. But even on a bigger scale, I feel like when you're, I've been trying this shit for a long time, so to have self-doubts is completely natural, but you can't let it turn into sabotaging your actions. So, don't let your self-doubt turn into self-sabotage, for sure. I don't know. I don't feel like chapter 2 really resonated with me in a lot of ways. I feel like maybe it was good for others, but I don't think some of the things that were touched on really apply to me. Like talking about poisonous playmates was a section in here talking about the most poisonous playmates for us as recovering creatives are people whose creativity is still blocked. Our recovery threatens them. We could fantasize about art instead of doing the work. It's something I had underlined, but it doesn't really make sense in context. But as long as we are blocked, we often felt that it was arrogance and self-will to speak of ourselves as creative artists. The truth is that it was self-will to refuse the knowledge of our creativity. Of course, this refusal had its payoffs. So it's basically saying that, like, I guess sometimes there's people around you who aren't tapped into their own creativity, and that is their paradigm, and you gotta have to disconnect from them sometimes, because you're trying to do something different, and you are definitely the average of like those 5 people that you surround yourself with, if you've heard that before. So I think it kind of just plays on that idea. Um, Another little quote that I had starred on the right here by Shakti Gawan. Every time you don't follow your inner guidance, you feel a loss of energy, a loss of power, a sense of spiritual deadness. And I feel that. I feel like I've had to do a lot of not following my inner guidance recently, which is something that I've always tried to stick close to, but doing it recently made me feel a little disconnected and shut down. Spiritual deadness, to use his words. Be alert to subtle sabotage from friends. And I underlined subtle twice because I feel like a lot of people just want you around, you know? And they want things from you in their own life, and not in like a negative way, but just like in a normal human way. And you have to be aware of how that plays into your journey and what you're trying to do, and balance that accordingly. Like it says there, be very careful to safeguard your newly recovering artist. So kind of goes, it makes us frustrated people, or it frustrates people. Another concept, like this whole section, I didn't have any underlines because it really didn't apply to me, but it's called Crazy Makers. And it says, a related thing creatives do to avoid being creative is to involve themselves with crazy makers. Crazy makers are those personalities that create storm centers. They are often charismatic, frequently charming, highly inventive, and powerfully persuasive. And for the creative person in their vicinity, they are enormously destructive. So crazy makers are the kind of people who can take over your whole life. To the people who feel like fixer-uppers, or I can fix the people around me, they're irresistible. So much change and so many distractions. So it's basically those people who just are a mess and maybe cause drama and problems just to have something going on in their lives, and can be alluring to people who want to be constructive, because human beings are very complex, so that's a big problem to tackle. So don't get wrapped up in other people's drama, and crazy makers are people that want to be the center of the drama. And if things get a little too calm or make too much sense, they probably end up saying something toxic, or you know what I mean, stirring things up again just for the sake of having something going on. Luckily, I have avoided those people as much as possible. So one thing I did have underlined was crazy makers discount your reality. And I wrote on the side, people who discount your reality, because maybe it's not a crazy maker, but like I said, like week 2 is recovering a sense of identity, and I think maybe me explaining this right now is kind of making it all make sense. But identifying with this journey that this book puts you on, and not allowing anyone to discount what you're doing and the reality that you want to live in, or that you may already live in. Don't let people belittle that, or try and redefine that, or bring you back down to whatever reality you used to be in, or whatever reality that they're in. You know, do you, and really stand by that. And I think this chapter serves as an emphasis to like be careful and protect that thing that you're trying to build and foster, for sure, which is fire. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't feel like chapter 2 did much for me. There is a section about attention that I had a lot underlined. The truth is that a creative life involves great swaths of attention. Attention is a way to connect and survive. And I think about the word focus a lot, and where your focus is, and I think that's adjacent to the idea of attention. So maybe that's why this section kind of stood out to me. But let's see what else we got in here. The capacity for a delight is the gift of paying attention. Let me read that again. The capacity for a delight is the gift of paying attention. And that followed up the story she gave was basically about her grandmother who on paper had a really painful life, but she remembered her as someone who really appreciated the little things and kind of always was pointing out some kind of positive. And I think that's what the point she's trying to make here is that it's where your attention goes that really matters. Like whatever's going on in your life definitely plays a factor, but where you pay attention is what your mind is focused on and appreciating or being tormented by. So attention is an act of connection. I also had underlined here. Let's read this section. The reward for attention is always healing. It may begin at the healing of a particular pain, the lost lover, the sickly child, the shattered dream. But what is healed, finally, is the pain that underlies all pain. The pain that we are all, as Rilke phrases it, unutterly alone. More than anything else, attention is an act of a connection. I learned this the way I have learned most things, quite by accident. That one didn't really mean much to me. I hope it meant something to you. but yeah. Let's look at some of the tasks she had us do. There's a lot of tasks in week 2 that I honestly sped through yesterday because I know I was behind. The biggest struggle with this book is to get all this stuff done because I realize, literally the amount of attention that this book requires. And there's a lot of other things in my life that require a lot of attention now, but it's very like me to take on too much at once. So, the first task here is to read the basic principles to yourself, which are the basic creative principles, which are one of the first things in this book. And it's funny that she wrote that as a task because when I first started this book, I looked at those and I was like, ooh, I want to read these every day. And I already have that as a habit, so it's cool that she ultimately ended up kind of assigning that. But let me read some of those to you now so you know what's in there. Here. Basic principles. Creativity is the natural order of life. Life is energy, pure creative energy. Another one that I like. The refusal to be creative is self-will and is counter to our true nature, which I love that because it's the opposite of what everyone thinks, They think the person over there painting or the creative person in your life, that's just their nature. And that's just, that's who they are. They've always been that person, but maybe they just didn't shut it down like everyone else usually does. As we open our creative channel to the Creator, many gentle but powerful changes are to be expected. It is safe to open ourselves up to greater and greater creativity. Our creative dreams and yearnings come from a divine source. As we move toward our dreams, we move towards our divinity. And there's a lot of godly, not even undertones, but just outright very, very God-centric. But I like how she doesn't really make it all specific to any one religion. Obviously, it's monotheistic, but I like to usually kind of replace that word with the universe. You know what I mean? In my brain, that's kind of one and the same to me. I think the effort or the effect is still there for me when I read them. And then what's some other activities we had done? It's week 2, but where does your time go? This one was good, which is something I feel like I've done already multiple times in my life to try and recalibrate what the hell I'm spending my life with. But list your 5 major activities this week. How much time did you give each one? Which were what you wanted to do and which were shoulds? How much of your time is spent helping others and ignoring your own desires? Have any of your blocked friends triggered doubts in you? So where did your time go? 5 major activities this week. I'm going to be working, recording / playing guitar, which I don't necessarily feel like, even within that category, I feel like there's wasting time and there's not. Playing your instrument's always going to kind of be good, but sometimes you're just playing the same stuff, or okay, you came up with a great chord progression, but then you put the guitar down and you walked away and now you forget it forever. Or I've been working on an album, so maybe I should spend my time recording and mixing and finishing those things instead of trying to write something new, or practicing piano, even though there's like almost no piano in these songs. So that kind of thing. Cooking was another thing that I was doing this week. Spent some time. Honestly, me and my girlfriend spent a lot of time cooking, but we've been trying to move towards the meal prepping and stuff to save time. So that one's going down. Video games, I've been struggling with my mild addiction to Rocket League. Um, it's like Rocket League's anonymous right here. I used to play the hell out of that game, like for hours on end. Now I'm maybe like an hour at most a day when I come home from work. Watching TV while we eat is usually a nightly activity as well. And skateboarding, which is six things, but I wanted to get skateboarding in there because I technically did set aside time to do that this week. And then I did some calculations. So this goes for everybody. If you work 40 hours a week, you got 24 hours in a day times 5 weekdays. Hypothetically speaking, you can do whatever you want on your weekends, in theory there. But say you have 30-minute commute on either way, so that's a total of 1 hour a day in the car. Like, well, let's allot that to working too, because I learn a lot when I put on podcasts and stuff when I'm driving, but it's still kind of work related time. So 45 hours a week. So that's 1 hour of commute for every day of the week, plus the 40 hours of work. So 45 hours a week. And if you get 8 hours of sleep, which is ideal, that's 40 hours to sleep for 5 days a week. Forgive me, 24 hours times 5 days is 120 hours. So you have 120 hours minus 45 hours to work minus 40 hours to sleep. That leaves you 35 hours to spare in a week, which sounds like a lot to some, maybe sounds like very little to others. Maybe it's just a reasonable amount of time. But then you got to figure out what you do with that. And, I'd like to spend most of it recording and enjoying life, man. Like this chapter was talking about being attentive and being in the present moment, no matter what you're doing, I think makes life worth it. If you're appreciating and showing attention to the things that will make you happy and make you appreciate the world that you're in, that's where your attention should go. So another activity we did was topics you need to protect. And it's basically things that, let me just read what it says here. It says, take a sheet of paper, draw a circle. Inside that circle, place topics you need to protect. Place the names of those you find to be supportive. Outside the circle, place the names of those you must be self-protective around. So what I put in there was recording, skateboarding, my morning pages, and meditation/yoga, which I definitely want to get back to, especially because honestly, like living here in Phoenix, Arizona, it could be stressful. There's a lot of sunlight, but also there's not a lot of green. Everyone's crazy on the roads, working in an office all day. Just trying to, calm the mind down and really like get back into my body and that kind of stuff. It's a must. I feel like I always feel better when I do stuff like that, and it's a must. So need to protect that. That's in the circle. And then I put some friends on the inside of the circle that I feel like facilitate that and or support those activities, and then some names of people on the outside, for better or worse, that I put on the outside who I need to protect those activities from. Not that these people are evil or that I don't like these people, but I do understand how their motivations in life and how it relates to me is in opposition of what I want to do with my life. So it needs to be protected against them. And then the next activity was to list 20 things you enjoy doing, and then giving a date as to last time you did it. Just to give an example, some of the things I haven't done in a while that I wanted to, like rock climbing. There's a couple of rock climbing gyms in Pittsburgh that I used to go to. Barely went to, but definitely would like to go back now. Some other sports I used to play, like basketball, hockey, lacrosse. Used to play all those in high school, and just with friends and stuff. And those haven't happened. I hadn't played lacrosse in like a decade now, which I probably won't, but just because that's a lot of gear and practice. But it'd be cool to have a stick and mess around with it again. Playing basketball. I'd like to get a basketball. There's a lot of courts around my house, and some friends that I've met here that talk about it. So it kind of makes me want to mess around with that some more. Jamming, like just making new songs and like just playing instruments with other people. Haven't done that in a couple months, so that's gonna be nice when I finally do. Next one, like I said, there's a lot, so I'm gonna kind of cut this short. But the next one was like to take some of those things that you like to do and just make it a goal to do it during this week. And skateboarding was one of them. And I honestly, like, I just did these activities yesterday after the week was essentially over, so I didn't really do these activities without realizing I checked that box off and did skateboard. So it's good. I'm moving in the right direction, but I didn't realize it was a task. And that's kind of one of two. Like, I didn't do something else that was on this list. And then do affirmations with your morning pages, which I have been doing. I didn't do it this week because I was waking up. If you saw my Instagram stories, I was waking up at like 5 a.m. So totally forgot about that. I was like half asleep when I did my pages. Also, if you are doing morning pages, if you are journaling in general, doing them when you're half asleep in the morning feels like magic. I feel like it's coming right out of my brain. There's no filter. The 3 out of the 5 days this week, it was just pure poetry, literally, which was cool. It felt like the right way to think in that moment and write down. So it was cool to get that coming out as fluidly as it did, and it made me feel good. It made those days feel really good to know that I did that and that it came so naturally, because that's who I want to be. It's the reason I'm doing this book. So it felt accomplishing. And then another list we did in week 1 that you added extra to, is like imaginary lives. So if you weren't doing what you're doing now, or you weren't pursuing the thing that you're trying to pursue, what else would you be doing? Some of the things I added this week was like being a botanist, a zoologist, a dancer, an electrician, all random as hell, but things that I could hypothetically be doing with my life, for sure. There's some other activities, but I feel like I've been talking your ear off about them, and hopefully you got a copy of this book and you'll be doing them soon. But week 2 wasn't bad. I feel like I was doing better with the morning pages. I'm actually doing in the morning now. If you saw week 1, I was doing them at lunch at work, but now I'm doing it in the morning, which is awesome. And now I have to do my weekly check-in, which is kind of the point of this vlog, but I didn't really do many of the things on the list. I mean, we talked about how many days I did the morning pages, and I kind of have to do a description of how that felt, kind of the things I've said here. Did I do my artist date this week? Yeah, I would say my skateboarding was my artist date, which is cool. Didn't really think of it as that, but definitely was that. Yeah, so week 2 in the books, man. In the books, literally. Yeah, again, through this book, I'm Stevie Flowers. Thanks for checking out the channel. I will be back in a week with more tea, more pages, and thanks for watching.